Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Ngayon pag-aaralan natin kung paano natin haharapin ang mapagpagaling na presensya ng Panginoong Diyos. Encountering God's healing presence. Ang talata ng pagbubulayan mula sa Mark chapter 5 verse 25 to 24 to 34. Sabi dito, "And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years and who had suffered much under any physicians and had spent all that she had and was no better but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, If I touch even his garments, I will be made well. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power has gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, Who touched my garments? And his disciples said to him, You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, Who touched me? And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had appeared to her, came in her fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." Reflecting on Mark chapter 5 verse 25 to 34, we uncover powerful insights into our relationship with God. First, hopelessness leads us to God. So the woman in the passage had endured a long period of suffering and had exhausted all human efforts for healing. Yet, in her desperation, she turned to Jesus, recognizing him as her only hope for restoration. Similarly, our moments of hopelessness can lead us to God, prompting us to seek him for comfort, healing, and deliverance. Faith is the conduit between us and God. The woman's faith served as the bridge between her and Jesus' healing power, despite the crowd and her fear. She believed that even touching the fringe of Jesus' garment would bring healing. Likewise, our faith opens the door for God's miraculous work in our lives, allowing his power to flow into our circumstances and bring about transformation. Third is God's presence is meant to be experienced. So as the woman reached out and touched Jesus' garment, she experienced the tangible presence of God, healing power. Similarly, God's presence is not meant to be distant or abstract, but is intended to be encountered and experienced in our lives. Through faith, we can draw near to God and encounter his presence in our daily walk. Our application in the teachings of Mark chapter 5 verse 25 to 34 to our lives, so we can do the following. So first is do not hope in people and wealth. Instead of placing our hope in human solutions or materials possessions, let us anchor our hope firmly in God alone. So he is the source of true healing, provision, and fulfillment, and he alone can satisfy the deepest longings of our hearts. Second is receive an outflow of Christ's power. So like the woman who reached out to touch Jesus' garment, let us position ourselves to receive the outflow of Christ's power into our lives. Through prayer, worship, and obedience, we open ourselves to the transformative work of God's Spirit, allowing his power to bring healing and restoration. Third is experience the reality of God's presence. Cultivate a lifestyle of intimacy with God, seeking to experience his presence in every aspect of your life. So through prayer, meditation, scripture, and fellowship with other believers, cultivate a deeper awareness of God's presence and his active work in your life. So our discussion in our devotion this morning is reflecting on the teachings of Mark chapter 5 verse 25 to 34. Let's engage in this following discussion. So first is sharing personal experience. So take turns sharing recent experiences of encountering God's presence or receiving his intervention in your life. So this could include moments of answered prayer, times of spiritual breakthrough, or instances of divine provision. Second is reflect on faith. journeys. So reflect on moments when your faith was tested or when you had to step out in faith to trust God for a specific need or situation. So how did God demonstrate his faithfulness and power in this moment? Third is encourage one another. Encourage one another to continue trusting in God's promises and to seek his presence earnestly in your daily lives. Share words of encouragement and prayer for each other's continued growth and faith journey. Lastly is commit to application. Identify specific areas in your life where you can apply the lessons of Mark chapter 5 verse 24 to 25 to 34. So make a commitment to rely on God's provision, to cultivate a lifestyle of faith, and to seek his presence daily.